What's this? The CW superhero shows to be rebooted Final Crisis style. Didn't they all? Well, they did a Crisis on Infinite Earth story, so maybe they'll do Final Crisis too. Well, they do need to do something. They probably should just cancel everything except Superman and Navy Star Girl and move on from there. But anyway, here we are at Bounding Into Comics, who is using this story via Mikey Sutton, who was on a podcast or a YouTube channel. That's where he was there. And talking about it. So anyway, there. See, hey, look, it's the two Flashes, but there can only be one, apparently. Because this one just can't stay out of trouble. So, but that's another story. Anywho, that's the scene from the Crisis on Infinite Earths where Ezra and Grant Gustin shared a scene. And it made this establish that the acknowledgement of a multiverse, and that included the DCEU. So that was about the only interesting thing about it. It's a couple of minutes. The rest, the CW crossovers are terrible. They've always been terrible. And that one was no different. But, you know, it had this interesting thing, which is just too bad Ezra, I don't know, flaked out. What are you going to do? So anyway, everything's in transition and shuffling around because of the merger with Discovery. And so Zaslav wants to consolidate things, and that's the idea. So the rumor comes from a longtime scooper, Mikey Sutton, during an appearance on Seal Abdul's YouTube channel back in February, discussing a complete restructure of DC films and their television properties into a more cohesive unit that Sutton describes as DC Studios. Well, that makes sense. So as part of this discussion, Sutton states there are some changes. No kidding. When the CW shows end up on HBO Max. So this is the thing about, because CW is up for sale. I don't know who wants it, but there's the deal. So I don't know if their licensing agreements are maintained and that they have rights to keep producing these DC shows. That might not be the case if they're all going to move to HBO Max. Eventually they end up there. Some of the Stargirl and Superman's on there and all that, but they're on CW first. But eventually they all get there, and the idea is just to move all those shows there. So I don't know what form or fashion CW ends up being, depending on who buys it. But anyway, Zaslav is said to have a cohesive universe. I guess means he wants a cohesive universe between the TV shows and the films. So Batwoman, and whatever surviving show, it's not surviving. No. They want one more Flash with very little Grant Gustin in it, apparently. And then, of course, Superman got renewed and all that. So basically Superman and I guess Stargirl are going to be rebooted into a kind of like Flashpoint timeline that we were talking about. The reboot that's not gonna stick. Even that's not gonna. What? I don't know. I don't understand. Because what Zaslav wants, as much as possible, is to have all these shows in the same universe. All right. So that's the deal, to have them all consolidated. So I don't know if this means the CW shows are part of the DCEU, or if there's crossover between them and that sort of thing. Because if that was the case, then that means Tyler Hoechlin, for all intents and purposes, is their Superman. Not Cavill. So that, based on the leaks from the Flash movie, this version of the DCEU survives, but there's a new DCEU. So this would just be Snyderverse, and DCEU would be this new universe with, Supergirl, Batgirl, and Michael Keaton and all that stuff, with Gal Gadot and Aquaman. Even though a copy of Gal Gadot and Aquaman and Jason Momoa's Aquaman would be still in this universe. See how that works? Makes all sense. That's so anyway. Let's see. But there's so the Titan show and Superman and Lois, there's a way of making them merge. Yes, that would be much easier to do. You could just establish that Tyler Hoechlin's Superman is the Superman of that world and merge them. I don't know about what's his name from Game of Thrones being Bruce Wayne, but he'd make a great Alfred. But whatever they do, you could argue that, oh, certain elements have changed and that sort of thing. So they could do that. Since the Titans is pretty much a CW type show, it had potential to be better than that. It has a pretty good cast, especially the guy playing Nightwing and Dick Grayson. He's pretty good, but he's just given nothing. The storylines are terrible, and this last season was god awful. They're getting another one, but man. So if they get a shot, hopefully they can keep some of those guys and do it proper. But man, because otherwise I would just build something out of the Superman show if you want to do some spin-offs of other superhero characters out of that to build it. But there again, it's like you want it all to be one connected to the DCEU movies or something like that, or is it multiverse crossover? You know, it gets a little dicey. But anyway, there's going to be a way of putting these shows except Matt Reeves and his. All right, so there's deals that they're going to go ahead and let Matt Reeves' Batman be separate and all of that. And then you got J.J. Abrams, which they probably should look for a way out of that. Because I don't know. No. The easier thing would have been to just say, if they could make it to where Matt Reeves' Batman is in the multiverse, but I don't know, for some reason they just don't want to do that. But because he says, but then again, he wants to downplay sporadically, you're going to have these alternate pocket universes, but for the most part, there's going to be a DCEU. There's going to be the DCEU connected universe to compete with Marvel. It's not copying them, but it works. So the idea of this is like, you're just copying Marvel. No. DC Comics and Marvel Comics have operated this way with their characters for decades. They all exist in the same world of their respective companies and the universes they depict. There's offshoots and stuff, and DC was at the forefront of this, of multiverse, where they had their Earth 2 and Earth 1 and all that, and the Earth 2 was the Justice Society, Earth 1 was the Justice League, so on and so forth, and worked out until they trashed it. But, well, what are you going to do? But they always had that going on for them, and they had other lines that weren't even connected to them and stuff, and Marvel had some of that too. But that's just the way the comic books operated. But for the most part, the world that Superman and Batman live in is the same world. So you got to go all the way back to the late 30s, some of the early 40s, because even that early on, they had these superheroes crossing over with each other. Not to the extent that they did later, but still, you know, it was there. It just, this idea was the lone superhero in the world. This hasn't been the case. In the movies, it has been for quite a while. But to replicate the world they actually live in, either on the big screen or on the small screen, the shared universe idea is the way to go. So to maintain that is not a bad thing. It's just the execution of how DC has done this with all the troubles and problems they've had. But a certain type of streamlining it down to something like that makes a certain sense to where it becomes a more solid product for them to put out there. So then it goes on about the sale of CW, and it'll be interesting. Is there just no superhero shows on CW going forward? It might be the case. It's just all HBO Max. But so Batwoman, Naomi, and DC Legends of Tomorrow, they haven't been renewed yet. So Stargirl, Black Lightning, that's already gone. So it had already been canceled. Okay, Supergirl. Okay, I thought it said Stargirl. Yeah, they'd already been canceled. Well, Arrow ended. And CW is developing a Gotham Knights series. They need to just cancel that. It sounds awful. So don't bother with that. So yeah, season 4 of Titans is coming. Jeez. Hey, what are you talking about? It looks kind of... No, it was awful. It was awful. Doom Patrol. Okay, they get a 4th one. Doom Patrol's got a lot of potential to it, but it squanders a lot of stuff on repetitive storylines and character plots and whatnot. It just got to get rid of the matted daddy stuff and them searching within themselves. That's enough of that crap. But 3 seasons in, you know, I don't know. But, you know, we'll see. But it's a masterpiece compared to Titans. So if you did a good Titans, or better yet, just forget about Titans and make a Nightwing show, even though I thought the Titans cast was okay, it'd probably be cheaper to just do a Nightwing show. You know, do that. But anyway, so that's the deal. And because for a while there, some of the stuff tossed around was they would just go back to standalone movies. And that's pretty much what the Batman is. It's like, oh man, we're not going to have, they're just going to give up on the shared universe thing. And that might have been a temptation for them to do it, but they were always stuck. They couldn't just scrap DCEU because they had some hits in it. So, you know, if it had all been a failure, it'd make it much easier to just scrap it. But that's not how that works out. So, to give it another shot, to do stronger shows, but I mean, it's too bad about the Flash. It had some good points and stuff, but it's run its course. They need to just let it go. But I think Superman and Lois has still got some life in it. Nothings. Oh man, what? They never even tried with that show. So see, there's the multiverse. It's all in this nice little decoration in the living room with the monitors. Anyhow, we'll see what they do. But that is interesting that this is Zaslav wanting to consolidate it all, with the exceptions of the Batman. As far as J.J. Abrams' stuff, he hadn't proven anything, and his ideas sound awful. So, you know, the Batman made some money. It didn't do what they wanted it to do, but it still made some money. So there's that. So I guess they'll, you know, do 2 more movies of that. And the rest of it continues on with a shared universe and TV shows. To go along, you know what? They just consolidate that alongside Peacemaker, and you're good. That's what you do. And the CW's got its own problems.